Hello and welcome back to Brony Music History. It's the podcast where we talk about the history of Brony music. Today, our guest is another fellow Australian who's been cooking up delicious tracks for the fandom since January of 2013. His music spans the whole spectrum of emotions, from comedy and fun and bouncy vibes to some of the most heartfelt and gut-wrenching lyricism and tone you'll hear around. All while giving a new spin on the canon of the show and its community. He's performed solo, been part of live bands, and done live PA sets at conventions over the years, and released many tracks on Ponies Dawn with both Australian and international collaborators. He's a gun on the guitar, he's made me bawl my eyes out at every convention I've seen him perform at, and he has the spiffiest beard in the business, and his name is Francis Vace. Welcome, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No worries. Welcome to the show, another fellow Australian, meeting in almost the same time zone.
Yeah, pretty close to. Are you guys on daylight savings where you are?
Yeah. So we're an hour ahead, so...
You see, we're on real time. We're on actual time.
Ooh, on the real time. Oh, watch this. Forget Brony music history. We're having a daylight savings argument.
We're gonna get to the hard-hitting topics immediately.
and boy, do we have some hard-hitting and very serious questions to get through today. But I want to go back to a question that sort of starts it all. So you were a musician long before you were making a name for yourself in the pony fandom. Where did it all start for you?
So I started playing in a band in high school, and that would have been, I want to say, either 2004 or 2005, like mid-high school. And we did that for a few years, and we were kind of like on a hiatus from that when Ponies started. And I initially didn't even consider to put the two together. But you know, as you would know, it's hard to be part of the fandom and not like know how much music is going on. And so I kind of saw all that, and I was like, okay, well, I like ponies, I know music. And then what I decided to do was, at the time, I feel like most of what you saw promoted, most of what was getting big was like the electronic music. And so I kind of thought, oh, well, this is what pony music sounds like, so that's what I should make if I'm going to be making pony music. And so I spent like at least a year trying to do that and just not doing it well. Until finally at one point I was like, okay, well, maybe if I'm going to do this, I should just do what I'm actually familiar with. And that's when I started to make stuff more like what I'm doing now. And that's kind of been the way it's been since then.
And so like those for any sort of audience members who really wanted to check out those early interesting dubstep works, they are still on your SoundCloud.
Yeah, they're on SoundCloud.
They're a good laugh to listen to.
Yeah, they're not good, but I keep them up just to keep myself humble, just to show my roots and make sure I never forget where I came from.
Absolutely. And so that was that year you're talking about. So you just started watching the show in what, 2012-ish?
It would have been during the season 1, season 2 hiatus.
Yep.
So all of season 1 was out, and I watched that in a couple of days. After having I would have seen it on one of... Do you remember back at that time, like...
No.
Icon Has Cheeseburger was a big site, and it had all of its like kind of sub-sites, and one of them was... I can't remember the name of it, but it had like a sub-site that was about ponies, and I was seeing that at the time come up in between the other things, because that was the site I was using at the time to look at memes.
Yep.
Which is a much... It's a not something that I look at back at too fondly, because like that's just such a, I don't know, like an early 2010s thing to be doing, is looking at cat memes on Icon Has Cheeseburger. But I saw these pony memes and I liked them, and I was like, okay, well, there's got to be something to it. So I watched the show, and you know, I wasn't really expecting too much, but then I just watched it all in a couple of days, and from then on I was kind of like, you know, that's
yeah.
And that's all she wrote. You know, like that was kind of it from then on. Did
the fandom stuff? I forgot what the what?
I forgot what the actual question was. I started rambling about I Can Has Cheeseburger and I lost track of what I was actually getting to.
So you started watching in the the season hiatus between 1 and 2, which is like 2011. Did the music from the fandom immediately jump out at you, or did you start to get more to see more of that as you got more involved with the fandom?
Yeah, I think it wasn't it wasn't immediate. Like what I saw immediately was like the image macro memes, and what I saw a lot of back in those days was the audio from movie trailers recut with the pony videos. That was what I was seeing a lot of. And then slowly I started getting into more of like the I don't want to say actual fandom because all of that stuff is fandom, but like, more into actually being involved with the fandom, which is when you start seeing all the music and that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, sweet. And what were your let's jump to sort of when you first started making your more rocky, poppy, non EDM stuff in early 2013. So what were your influences from both inside the fandom and outside the fandom at that time, sort of from a musical perspective?
You're really going to test my memory here because I'm trying to think of who was around back then, because it all kind of, when I look back, it's like over 10 years now. It's kind of all been a blur. But I think at the time, I think Prince would have been doing stuff then. I know that there was some Jeff Burgess albums out at the time that I was quite into, um, and he was one that I was seeing pop up in some of the Reddit sub communities that I was in. So I kind of was seeing him through that more so than being actually part of the music community at that point in time. Um, and then beyond that, I think it was more that I was just having like the influences were probably more from like the music I was listening to outside of Ponies. And then, as time has progressed, I've kind of been incorporating more of the influence from within the fandom music scene. But I kind of feel like until I started making music that I thought was good, that I wasn't really kind of part of any uh of the kind of I guess I wasn't like looking to be part of any of those uh musical sub communities.
Yep.
And it was when I started getting involved with them, that's when I started kind of, I guess, broadening uh my horizons in terms of influence from within the fandom.
Yeah, sweet. And so the first track you released in what has now become your sort of signature rocky style is Smile Damn It, released in January 1st, 2013. So you'd gone through the trying to make dubstep phase. What really prompted that shift, and what inspired Smile Damn It?
I think at the time I didn't really see it as like me. Like I didn't make that song intending to be like, oh, I'm changing direction and this is my new thing. I was just like, kind of made it on a whim, like just it was just a thing to do. And I think because it ended up turning out so much better than the stuff that I had been making, that's when I was like, afterwards, I was like, oh, okay, actually, this is probably what I should be doing. In terms of musical influences on that, Blink was a pretty big influence. I mean, it's right there in the title.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of like the kind of old school punk stuff, like Ramones and the Dead Kennedys, were all things I was kind of had been part of my songwriting influence up until then. So it was kind of hard to get away from that, and you kind of get that in that kind of surfy style riffing that is going on
Absolutely.
in between the vocals. Um,
And
then
for a first track as well, it's pretty tight. Like had you, so you'd been in a band, right? But before, but had you actually released any music or done any sort of mixing and mastering? Because it's not just I recorded myself playing guitar on my crappy phone speaker. Like it's a reasonably decent production.
Yeah, I mean I think it holds up. Like it's
Yeah.
I think that what I'm doing now is better, but like when I listen back to it, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's actually pretty good for like how long ago that was. But yeah, at the time I had been using Pro Tools for Probably about 5 years. Um, and I'm trying to think if I was still using Pro Tools, and I think I probably would have changed to. I would have made the switch to Ableton when I was trying to make more electronic music.
Mm.
And I would have probably just stuck with it because it's like Ableton is able to record live stuff as well. So I would have just kept using that at the time. But yeah, like the bands I had been in, we'd all of them had done at least one or two like EPs or singles or something like that, which we'd self-produced.
Yeah, sweet.
So doing that kind of stuff for a little bit.
Cool. Well, let's play Smile Damn It from released on January 1st of 2013. New Year's track.
Was it really?
Yeah, yeah. New year, new sound, new me.
Heck yeah.
All right, let's give this one a spin. Yeah, that definitely still holds up. Holy moly.
Yeah, the thing about that one that I think is interesting is that it holds up a lot better than songs that I produced after it. I think like when I look back, like that song I think still holds up, but then like there's about like maybe a year or so after that that it's like I still don't mind the songs, but like listening to the way I produce them, like I just don't like listening to them anymore. But for some reason, that very first one still is okay, and I'm not sure what I forgot how to do between that and the next couple of songs. But I lost track of things for a little while before I pulled it back again.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Yeah, I'm frankly not a particularly good judge of sort of the more technical things in more acoustic and rock production. So I didn't pick up on that, but that's interesting to hear. And in that 2013 and 2014 period, you did release like a fair few songs. And you also started to get more involved with the fandom and sort of, you know, make friends and start doing that. What do you feel like that period represents for you, like in your discography?
I guess like in terms of if it had to represent something, it would be, I guess, growth. Like I don't really know like what else to call it because like I kind of feel like I was hitting my stride around about 2015, and like from like that kind of, I mean, Small Damn It was kind of an anomaly, but like from everything beyond that up until that point, I was just kind of like still really learning. And like when I listen to my stuff back from that period, it's kind of like, okay, in this track, now I've actually gotten a handle on this particular technique, and the next album it's like, okay, now I've fixed up like this issue I'm having with the kick drum or whatever, and like there are like everything I think from that period, I think from me has issues. Some of them worse than others, but at the same time, I think like it's also like I'm still quite proud of all the songwriting from that period. Like I'm looking to maybe redo one of those songs again, like release a 2022 version of one of those songs. Um, but yeah, and it was also like a period where I stopped being quite so isolated, because I started out very much in a case of like I was kind of making the stuff very much in isolation. I was putting it out to, I mean, just kind of just broadcasting out into the internet without really having anyone on the other side to actually be listening to it just yet. But over that period was kind of where I started to like make a lot more friends and actually start making efforts to um get in touch with other musicians and kind of either collaborate with them or just kind of like discuss music and kind of share techniques and stuff like that. So
And
I think like that's
and
musical growth, but then also like kind of personal, more social growth as well.
yeah, and also one of the quirks of that early those early releases is that you weren't even Francis Vace back then. That was back as
No.
Vaceslav, which is your first alias.
Yes.
What was the origin of that name, and when exactly did that change kick around?
So that was the origin of that was it came out of a random name generator. Um, it's a Czech last name. No, actually, I think it's a Czech first name, but it's kind of like quite an obscure, not obscure, like outdated. Like it's not really in use anymore. Like Václav would be a more modern take, or at least it'd be something you would hear nowadays. Whereas Vaceslav was like
Ooh.
the older version of that. I learned after I had started using it. Someone was like, "Hey, this is like no one. That's not a name that anyone actually has anymore. It makes you sound really old." Um, which is not the entire like the reason I'm like the biggest reason that I stopped using that was that just no one, not even really me, could pronounce it. Like I would kept like it's I'll try, and it's Vaceslav. And I probably went a little bit too close to an F on the end there, but like uh it's like a Czech name, and the thing with uh letters from that kind of period is like like we have like silent letters, whereas Czech has like invisible letters. So like a C, you would pronounce that as like a T and an S. So like there are things in there like no one would ever think to like pronounce. And so what I kind of decided was like most people were like pronouncing it Vaceslav, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna give the people what they want. Like from now on I will be Vace, and I put a first name along with it to make it seem more like a person. And that was kind of I think that was I think even the very first song I released under the Francis Vace alias would have been a Steven Universe cover, I think. And so I did this whole kind of like, oh, I'm gonna do a new song. It's not Pony, it's like a different thing, and it's a new name. And it wasn't like my intention to be like, oh, I'm leaving Pony. Like that was
Yeah.
just like I'm just gonna do like a different thing with a new name, and like I'll keep using it, but like I kind of wanted to like do this thing where there was at least something close to a clean break
Yeah.
when I changed.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, that's a cool origin story. Random name generator. There we go. One of the most iconic names in early Australian fandom, and it came out of a random name generator. And so in that period, you connect more with the Australian fandom. You'd release your first track on Ponies at Dawn in December of 2014. What was the early Australian sort of music community like? And how did you feel sort of joining in on what they were doing?
So for me, the early Australian community essentially was Ponies Dawn, because that was kind of like, I guess that there was the Bronies, was it Brony AU,
Yep.
the BAU
The forums. The
forum.
Brony's Australia
Um,
forums.
yeah, so that there was that, and there was like some music, kind of was a music section on there, but it was mostly like it didn't really feel like a community of musicians as such. It was more like just a place where musicians would post their stuff, and sometimes people would say nice things, and sometimes people would say not quite so nice things, but it wasn't like a place to go to have discussions about music with musicians. And it was when Alex posted a link, where Ponies at Dawn album coming up, um, you know, submissions, and I sent him a thing being like, "Hey, I want to do a thing for the album," and he was like, "Cool, join this Skype group." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so that was kind of like the first big, or the first sizable, I guess, community of musicians that I was a part of, and being that it was the early days of Ponies at Dawn, it was still mostly Australians at the time, or at least it was a much higher percentage of Australians than most communities would have been at the time. Um, and I guess it was still a case of, until people know you, they don't know you, you know? So,
Absolutely.
like I kind of came in and I was still mostly unknown, and uh, I remember it would have been not long after that, because the first con I performed at was the PonyCon
See,
AU
see
2015.
in February of 2015.
Yeah, yes, at the Gold Coast, and I remember at the time, uh, everyone was really nice, but Evdog came up to me at one point, and Evdog is a lovely guy, but he is quite frank, and he came up to me and he said, "Have you been doing stuff for long? Have you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been doing stuff here and there, yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, because I've been talking to everyone, and everyone I've been talking to, I've been saying like, 'Hey, have you heard of this Vaceslav guy?' And they've been like, 'No, I have no idea who this guy is.'" And I was like, "All right, cool." But then, like, I guess from that point on, they, I guess, did, like, it's hard to, or I guess it's, I'm trying to, I want to word this right. Um, I think it's hard for the people who are able to go to cons to kind of conceptualize how much that can help them, and how much they've kind of been aided by that. Because I know that for me, like, it was hard for me to kind of get my foot in the door until I had gone to that first convention. I actually started meeting a few people, and from that point on, like, we were, you know acquaintances, or friends or whatever. But like, we had that kind of anchor point we could go back to, like, oh, I have met this person, like they're a nice person, that you just don't quite get if you it's like a purely online interaction.
Yeah, 100%.
um mm,
All,
yeah.
all of all of my best friends in the pony fandom are people that I've met in real life at conventions or otherwise. Like, there is something about that online connection, and also as well, I think you really you capture people that don't necessarily engage with the fully online like music community by attending and playing at cons. Because
Yeah.
not everyone is obsessively sitting watching their YouTube subscriptions waiting for the hot new Francis Vace track or Rock Fox mixtape.
Hmm.
They're going to get introduced to you when you're playing live at conventions.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I definitely agree with that there. Yeah, how was CPonyCon? How was your performance? And did it change? So obviously it changed sort of some things because you met a lot of new people. Did it change the way you'd go on to produce your music as well? Because you were like, oh, convention, ooh, I'm playing live now.
um not in the sense that, like, I didn't start writing songs differently, with there being this something in the back of my mind being like, oh, if I have to perform this one day, like, I didn't, like, that didn't really creep in. But I guess it was from that point on, like, that's when I started doing a lot more collabs, and so it changed the way I wrote music, in that I was now writing music that I was, like, a lot of the time I was still doing it solo, but like, I was writing a lot more stuff that I was trying to kind of bring other people on board with, or kind of get on board with other people's stuff that they were doing. And it was being able to go to those conventions and actually network with people and meet the people that was kind of a big kind of help in that direction.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue into the next song you've sent for me to play. So Friendship Throughout the Ages. This track features the L Train, Fritzy Beat, Evdog, CXDR. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
That's Chirax Destructor.
Oh, Chirax Destructor. Okay, I've never seen it shortened like that. There we go. Ichigochi and Enshin, which is basically a who's who of the Australian fandom at that point. So this drops to
pretty much everyone but Fritzy Beat is Australian on that one.
Yeah, and this drops like 2 months after you did your performance at PonyCon AU in 2015.
Yeah.
So did you take all of these new connections and say to everyone, "Hey, I have an idea. Like, let's do a gigantic collab"?
I mean, like not immediately, but like pretty soon after the con was when I would have started kind of making those not calls, but like, sending messages out being like, "Hey, you want to be part of this thing?" Because when you've got, what is that, 6 extra people to work with, it can take quite a while to organize it. So to have gotten it out 2 months after the con, I probably would have been working on it like the week after the con ended to have gotten it out in that time frame. And then like, especially with this one, because like one of the things about the original song is it has like all of these different segments, and I didn't want to just do like a cover that was the same all the way through. I wanted to kind of emulate that, and so different parts of the song are actually different people that are in charge of that section of music. So and at one point I was like, "Hey, I was talking to Chirax at the time. I said, can I get you to do vocals?" And the response I got back was like, "I'm gonna do it, but only if you let me put banjo in my section." And I was like, "You know what? If you want to do that and you can make it work, let's have that happen, because that sounds amazing."
The result is absolutely chaos, Max. It's chaos, but in an awesome way. If you're struggling to follow along who's singing or doing what in each of the sections, I highly recommend taking a look at the YouTube video, because it's almost like a lyrics video for each of the 6 or 7 performers. And yeah. How was that track received once it dropped?
I mean, to this day, it's still one of my like most viewed songs. Like, it's probably, like, at the time, it was definitely the biggest response I'd ever gotten to a song. And it was pretty wild at the time, just because I had been getting like low numbers at the time, and then like got all these people together and did this thing, and it was like actually starting to get some views, and like, like not well, I don't want to say none of us, but like most of us aren't in it for the views, but it's still like when people are listening to something you've done and enjoying it, like that feels good,
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe this is your first Equestria Daily feature as well, so there's definitely probably a view bump from that.
I think my first Equestria Daily feature was Plain Not Nice.
Okay.
And that was because Seth was a big Trixie nut, and I just kept making songs, and eventually I sent him one that had Trixie on the cover, and that one got on.
The good old Seth bait.
Yeah.
Track.
And but yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the first.
Okay. Well, maybe I stand corrected. I'll have a look. I'll have a look while this is playing, and I'll double check. I love that. I love it. I love it when people fucking out research me, or out remember me, more likely. All right, let's give Friendship Throughout the Ages a spin. So yeah, this is Friendship Throughout the Ages featuring the L Train, Fritzy Beat, Evdog, Chirax Destructor, Ichigochi, and Enshin.
Nothing stays the same for long, but when it changes doesn't mean it's gone. Time will always get away as it leaves behind another day. Things may come and things may go. Some go fast and some go slow. Few things last, that's all I know. The friendship carries on through the ages. Things may come and things may go. Some go fast and some go slow. Few things last, that's all I know. The friendship carries on through the ages. Been around for a long time, rocking out hard 'cause I'm in my prime. Maybe it'll change further down the line, but my friendship carries on through the ages.
Every single style has something different it can say. There's nothing wrong with being unique and special in your own way.
Maybe you wanna be a pop star, get your 15 minutes of fame. Whoa, well, that won't last forever. No, the friendship remains the same. Whoa. Things may come, things may go. Some go fast and some go slow. Few things last, that's all I know. The friendship carries on through the ages. Things may come, things may go. Some go fast, some go slow. Few things last, that's all I know. The friendship carries on through the ages. Things may come, things may go. Some go fast, some go slow. Few things last, that's all I know. The friendship carries on through the ages. Oh, carries on.
There we go. Friendship throughout the ages. And you were right. It is the Trixie song in early February of 2015. So I stand corrected. Well done.
Oh, thank you. I mean, like, it's. I remember telling my dad about that. I was standing like in a lumber yard. We were loading planks of wood onto like a ute, and I was like, "Hey, Dad." So my pony song got featured on this site called Equestria Daily. The thing you need to know about Equestria Daily is, and like, and that's like, it's weird because like I have this like there are some things just like stick out like really strong in your memory for some reason or other, and like for some reason, like telling my dad about Equestria Daily and then trying to explain to him why that was such a big deal, like it's just stuck in my head.
Hey,
So-
hey, look, Dad, my post doing numbers and the horses on the internet are saying nice things about it.
yeah, pretty much.
That is an amusing part of translating the fandom to real life is just, yeah, having to explain things like that. I very much agree. And Friendship
Yeah.
Throughout the Ages, like, is a song that's rooted in the music of My Little Pony, but also the sort of themes and of the canon of the show. What did you find about Pony that, you know, meant you could write so much music about it?
I think that Pony is like at the time, like what I was getting into, like I'm talking like really early on, like you know the when I first started watching it, like I was really into like a lot of dark anime. So I was watching Gantz and Elfen Lied and stuff like that, which was like really gory, really kind of these dark tones. Um, and what Horse kind of gave was like this counterpoint to that. And it was like this, it's okay for like stories to be um nice and you can tell interesting stories about, you know, people getting along and having a good time. And I think it was like I mean, like, I wasn't in like probably a great space mentally back then. Like I was kind of failing uni and I wasn't really getting out of the house very often, and so like I think having something like that, which was a kind of counterpoint, was a good thing to have. And I think like, eh, and I guess that's like what got me into it. But then like what kind of helped the songwriting is like Pony has like all of these kind of foundational building blocks, and all of those are kind of really easy to then build stories on top of. So what it is uh it's it's a fucking nerdy thing to say. It's a nucleation point. Like it's the I think have you heard of the expression the tyranny of the blank canvas?
I haven't even heard of the word nucleation point, but I think I have heard of the idea of the tyranny of the blank canvas. Yeah, but
Yeah,
talk us
okay.
through it. Talk us through it.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, it's kind of this idea that like when you have everything available to you in terms of like options to create things, it's really hard to actually start. You kind of get this choice paralysis, and if you've got everything to choose from, you end up choosing nothing. So having something to be like, here is a starting point, and here's something that you can kind of put, and it's like, snowflakes, like they don't just form, like they happen when like you get a speck of dust and then like this ice kind of forms around it. And I feel like Pony is kind of like that for me. Like it's that point in the middle on top of which I can start building things.
That is such a fabulous explanation. I have never heard it explained like that, but it makes sense.
Mm.
It's a really good analogy of why fan content, but specifically Pony as well, works so well.
Mm.
That's a fuck.
And I think one of the other things too is it provides a way for you to tell stories that are like maybe personal, but like you can put like a layer of detachment in there. So like I think we'll get into this later, but like especially like the new album I'm writing now, like I'm writing a lot of like kind of personal shit, but like I'm putting my experiences in like through the lens of a story of a horse, and it makes it a little bit easier to kind of be like, yeah, this is a story about like a thing that I'm experiencing, but it's not like about me. Like, like it's a way to kind of like have like this kind of uh, I don't know, like a layer of separation or something like that. Like it's a way to have
It's a way to not be Taylor Swift singing about her new ex every time she breaks up with a new person, and that ex knowing exactly that.
yeah,
She's
yeah,
singing
that's
about
probably
you.
a better way to put it. It's a way to get out feelings without getting out the specifics.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, that's a really cool answer. Yeah, that fucking rules. And as well as sort of the text of the show, you've your style has stayed quite rocky, although you've been featured on many dance tracks as well, and been part of that. But sort of your tone is really quite variable. You've made tracks like that, like Friendship Throughout the Ages, which are quite heartwarming. Tracks like Entropy, which is really touches at the soul and speaks to sort of the depth of emotions in Pony. And then we have our next track, and Mackenzie asks on Twitter, Oates, question mark. Can you talk us through like sort of this variability and is there a reason behind why you've done that, or is it just an emergent outcome of wanting to produce lots of music?
Yeah, like I'm not necessarily trying to be the person that does a little bit of everything. It's just kind of like that I make stuff that I'm interested in, and I am just interested in quite a few things. So often what will happen is I'll just like hear something I like, or I'll be kind of watching something and get an idea from that, and I'll just be like, okay, this is a thing I'm doing now, and I'm gonna like spend the next couple of weeks or months working on a thing. And quite often it like doesn't go anywhere. I'm be like, I'm doing a thing, it's gonna be great, and then like a week later it's like, I'm not doing that thing anymore. But like when it does happen, it's kind of like it's I think a result of like having a kind of fairly a wide range of influences.
Yeah, sweet. And that does bring us to Oates,
Yes.
which is just if you ever have the chance to see Francis belt out Oates live, especially in person, holy fucking shit, do it. Go and see it. Sell your left testicle to get there because it is a hell of a ride. So this is released in December of 2015. So it's about eight months after the last track you showed us. Tell me about Oates. What's going on with Oates?
So I find Oates hard to talk about outside of the context of the album that it's in, because Pastel Hue was this album where I really wanted to look at all of the background ponies and kind of tell the stories of those characters in the background. And I think like probably the most direct one of those would be Buried, which is like almost directly just a song about being in the background and kind of wanting to be noticed, but like no matter what you do, like it's very hard to be noticed. And what I was doing at the time was not all of them, but a lot of those stories kind of came from the infamous episode 100, which like obviously Oates is inspired by that. The song at the end, Fireworks, is from that. Like it's to do with Doctor Who's and his unexploded fireworks. And when I was kind of looking through and like looking for stories to expand upon from that episode, like just one of the things that I thought would be just really, really funny would be if like so Bonbons had this like secret identity. It's this like massive betrayal. Like if you think about it in terms of the trust, like they've been living together for who knows how long, and this person has been someone else the entire time. And so like at the end, when she's forgiven for this like massive betrayal, that I think it's a massive betrayal, and then she's like, so she gets forgiven and then gets told, oh, and by the way, I ate your oats. If she was like, what the fuck? How dare you? Like, just this complete overreaction to this really minor incident. And that's I think even like what happened was I thought of that. I thought of this scenario where it's like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if like she just completely overreacted? And I wrote this chorus as like a joke just to post to Twitter. It was just like, oh, you fucking bitch, you hate my oats, and just like repeat that 4 times and that's your chorus. And I posted it to Twitter and I was like, no, you should do this. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to write this out. I'm going to write this song. And the rest is history, I guess. Like that's, it's been like, if people know me for a song, it's this one.
Yeah, absolutely. This song just fucking rules. All right, let's give Oates a spin. And language warning on this one. There is lots of swearing, but also we've been swearing through this whole episode, so like, I'm just gonna tag this whole episode as explicit.
I think I was trying to not swear to begin with, but I've been slowly losing the ability.
Kiddly winks. Don't swear.
Yep.
Anyway, here's language warning.
Told you the truth about what I do. I may have held back a secret identity, but that is nothing compared to what you did to me. You fucking what you've done to me. I don't think I'll ever trust again. You fucking bitch, don't eat my oats. You goddamn fucking bitch, don't eat my oats. You fucking bitch, stay the fuck away from my oats. You fucking bitch, don't eat my oats. I love oats. Oats gets my bones. I love oats. Oats floats my bones. You fucking bitch, don't eat my oats. You goddamn bitch, don't eat my oats. You goddamn fucking bitch, stay the fuck away from my fucking oats. You fucking bitch, don't eat my oats.
And if you're going to be known for one track, holy fuck, what a track to be known for.
Yeah.
And that isn't the only version of that track that exists, though. There is a clean version. That
Yeah,
has been-
there are two clean versions of that.
Oh, was one the Ponies at Dawn one?
Yeah, so one's the Ponies at Dawn one, which is, I mean, I'll start this out. To begin with, I I wanted to give my grandmother like a physical copy of the CD for Christmas. I thought that was a really nice thing to do, but you know, she's not huge on the swear words, so I did an edited version. So there's one CD out there. There's one physical copy that exists that has no Fs at all. And I made it just for my grandma so she could listen to it. And so it's just I just cut them out. I'm just like it's just like silence and then don't eat my oats, and then silence and then don't eat my oats. I mean not fully silence, like there's music, but the vocals are silent. And then from there, when I was like playing it at cons, like a few cons would be like, hey, we want you to play, but like we've heard that song, like don't play that song. I'm like, well, can I just play a version of that song? And they're like, okay, yeah, don't swear, it's fine, you can play it. And so I did a version where I just kind of PG'd it up. I did like the kind of
You hacking Grinch! Don't steal my oats!
yeah,
You gosh darn hacking Grinch!
I've had it with these something snakes on this Monday to Friday plane, like that kind of thing. And so I was doing that live, but it didn't exist in a recorded version. And then Alex came to me and said, hey, we want to put this song on one of our compilation Ponies at Dawn albums. We don't want all the Fs. Can you record a new version that has the Fs taken out? And at the time, I was like, well, we're kind of out of luck because that was an old computer. Oh, I tell you what, though, I have this version I recorded for my grandma that's got these spaces in it. I can just sing a few, like, extra words in there, and then you can get, like, something close to the con version that I do live. And so if you listen to the Ponies at Dawn album, or at least when I listen to it, I think it's really obvious. There's, like, there's a person, like, 4 years in the future singing in amongst me from way back when, in the chorus in that song.
And that is a very neat little bit of trivia. One of my favorite Francis memories is just some of the sort of old school Australian music bronies just sort of standing at the back of the room at Alicon as you sing this song and censor yourself, and just like some people standing at the back of the room with their arms crossed and just shaking their heads and going, we want swear word version.
Yeah. Well, I mean, potentially it was, in hindsight, might have just been a mistake to have censored myself at the cons, or not a mistake to censor myself, but a mistake to replace those censored versions. Because what I found later is I was doing my favorite thing about horses live, and that's got some swears in it. But like, if I just don't sing them,
Yeah.
then the audience will, and the con can't kick me out for what the audience is saying. So if I just leave those spaces and people are aware of the songs, they will fill the spaces for me, and we'll get something close to the original version.
It's absolutely ingenious, and that is a trick for young players. Everyone, just that if you leave this interview learning anything, it's that little trick.
Cons hate him. Get around the restrictions with this one simple trick.
Yeah, sweet. And so after sort of that was late 2015. Through basically the whole second half of the decade, you continue to release sort of concept album and singles and feature on lots of different works and have lots of other people feature on your works. Collaboration has, especially in this second half of your discography, been a really, really big marker of a lot of the works you've produced. Do you have a favorite artist to collaborate with? And what's been sort of your approach to collaboration, and how's it worked out for you?
I won't say who my favorite to work with is, because I feel like there are so many that like I would be we wouldn't have enough time, and I would be doing
It's very political.
someone a disservice by leaving them out. But I could maybe talk about some of my favorite projects I've been involved with. I think still one of my favorites is the Wanting Knowing EP. Like, that was a work that I am still super, super, super proud of. And that was me and Cherix at the time. And it's kind of continued on with that, and Engine D's kind of come into the fold. Like, there was one song that I did with him that was kind of in the same universe. I can't stop writing songs in that storyline. Like, I made this we made this EP, and it felt like it was done, and then I've just been like, every now and then I'll be like, I won't even be trying to. I'll be writing a song and I'll be like, oh god damn it, this is like a continuation, isn't it? Like, okay, I guess I'm doing another Wanting Knowing song. Even up to the point where I just released a song called Eternal, and I was having this kind of like internal struggle, because like the song itself could have very easily have been called Still Waiting Part 2. And it would have been like many years on, I would have been like still continuing this storyline. And I ended up not doing that, partially because it's going on an album that already has 2 part 2s on it, and I didn't really want to have a third part 2 on this album. Also because it's just been so long, and I feel like I should be putting it to rest. I shouldn't be adding on to it anymore. But then also partially because like the song itself is not specific. It's about like an eternal twilight dealing with loss, but there's nothing specific about that loss. So it could be the loss of a lover, or it could just be the loss of her friends, because she's so old now. So I think I was purposeful in making that ambiguous and making it so it could be applied to either situation. I think because of that, I didn't feel quite right to make it an official continuation. Although I think that that as a reading of it is still quite valid.
Yeah, the people that can draw that bow will probably find that interpretation.
Yeah,
I think we'll come to Fading and sort of the rest of your discography, the future of your discography, in a bit, including probably talking about more about Eternal. And I've just had a peek at the track list. Oates Part 2.
Yeah, Oates Part 2. I was actually pretty close to sending you that one as like the preview track, but it's not ready yet. It's not quite ready yet.
That's okay. And I think too many oats for one day.
You can't follow oats with oats. That's
no. Way too much. Yeah. And so you've just sort of really just chugged along the past 6 years. There's been no points where sort of your output's dropped off for like a long time. Well, okay, like at least compared to I guess my point of reference is that that there are artists that I've talked to on this show who have dropped off for like 3 or 4 years and then come back. Like it's not the most consistent, but it has sort of kept chugging along. What's kept you coming back all these years?
Well, I'm not even sure if there is a thing that's kept me coming back. Like, it's just that, or I guess it doesn't feel like to me that I am coming back. It's that when I have these kind of periods where I'm not doing too much, it's just because like I've had so much going on in like other stuff in my life. I've wanted to do stuff, but I just have found it impossible to find the time to keep doing stuff. So like I was doing uni for a bit, and I was mostly able to keep up output during that. Like uni for me was 15 to 17. And then I had a period of about a year where I just wasn't working. I was like looking for work, but like I wasn't finding much. And so I think that was quite a productive period. But then I found this full-time job, and then, I mean, from my perspective, it really felt like from that point up until a couple of months ago, I was really low output for that period. Because like I had this job, and it was, as far as jobs go, it was a good job, but it wasn't the career direction I wanted to go in. So I was doing this job, but I was also putting a lot of work outside of that into building a portfolio, and kind of making steps in eventually going in the direction I did actually want to spend, potentially the rest of my life doing. And it, with all of that stuff going on, I was finding it super hard to find time for, I mean, pretty much anything that I would consider a hobby. Like anything that I wanted to do outside of working and portfolio building, I just was really struggling to find time for in that period.
Yeah. And look, let's touch on that portfolio. I'm assuming you're talking about your game production, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's touch on that, because you really are a Renaissance horse. A lot of your games sort of have echoes of Pony, even if it's not explicit. What's it been like, sort of making those, and have people responded to those in sort of the same, not sort of the same way, but like, yeah, what's been the difference between sort of making games with echoes of Pony compared to like tracks with echoes of Pony?
There is a smaller percentage of people that are looking to try out pony games. It's this thing I think about in terms of like when I was just doing music, I would think about this a fair bit, was like it seemed like the visual artists were getting a lot more like recognition than the musicians were. And at the time I kind of put it down to like it takes a couple of seconds to appreciate a picture. Like you can look at a picture and be like, yeah, that's a good horse, and kind of carry on with your day. Whereas like a song will take you 3 to 5 minutes to actually listen to. And so it's just that like in terms of getting people's attention and keeping it, it's much harder to do that for an extended period of time. And then games is like that amplified again. Like you're talking about the difference between 3 to 5 minutes to like half an hour. And they've also got to like download the exe onto their computer, and they've got to unzip it from a zip file that Windows is going to tell them, do you trust this? I don't know if they do or not. Like maybe I wouldn't trust me if I was downloading zips from the internet. So I think it's a case of like it's much higher. You're asking a lot more of the people that are potentially going to be viewing your works to get buy-in on like playing video games.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think you were demoing. I think it was either Pink Marmalade or Outgun at Alicon.
It would have been. I would have had released Pink Marmalade, and I would have been demoing Pink Marmalade 2.
Ah, okay.
Well, that's what I wanted to show people, but everyone kept playing Pink Marmalade 1 because it was done. It had a leaderboard, whereas Marmalade 2 at the time was just like individual levels, and there was no competition. But what I found was like people would play through Marmalade 2 once, and then they'd be like, "Hey, can I play Marmalade 1 again?" And then they would be trying to beat each other's high scores from then on. So like,
It's community. It's community in almost every aspect of this fandom. The things that do well are the things that promote community and interaction between people, because I think it's because people fucking love their friends.
yeah.
And there's something about friendship. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but there's something about friendship that people say.
Friendship is real good stuff. That's what they say.
It's the good shit.
Yeah, and like from that moment at that con, like I have not made a big game that I haven't put a leaderboard in, just because of that experience and seeing how much more engaged people were when they had that kind of engagement. No, like that kind of reason to keep playing.
Yeah. It's clever. It's very clever. It's a good decision. And yeah, so you did say earlier that in the past, 3 or 4 months, you've sort of really amped up your output, and you do have an album coming out soon. So just putting that album to one side, because we'll just talk about that in a sec. But what is next for sort of Francis Vace? Do you have any sort of big plans for the alias beyond releasing this album, or is it just just keep chugging along sort of thing?
I don't know. I mean, like, I think it's gonna somewhat hinge on what the reception to this album is. I mean, I'm not gonna like stop doing pony music. That's like not a thing that I'm planning on doing. But it's like, how much effort am I gonna put into that versus like the other projects I'm doing is maybe the what I'm kind of weighing up at the moment. And then also I've got like it's early days, but I have on the horizon a potential like IRL band that might be starting up soon.
Okay.
And it's possible that if that does go ahead and starts rolling, it might be that I shift focus from the Francis Vace alias to whatever the alias of this band will be, and then what you'd see would be the songs I would be releasing under Francis Vace. I'll take to that band, and it might be released under that alias name instead of my own. And I mean, to be honest, I'll still release under Francis Vace because like I will probably be making more music than I will have room for in the band. So it'll probably be like a somewhat parallel projects when that's rolling. But like I said, it's still early days, so I can't make any guarantees on that front.
Yeah. A vibe. It's interesting to know the vibe of that direction. Can you speak to sort of what you mean by when you said sort of how this album is received sort of is going to dictate your future? Is there something about sort of the state that you're in and the state the fandom's in that you're just like
It's not so much whether like I'm not making this like kind of how alive is the fandom calculus, like, because I don't think that's like really I mean, I think the people that are still making music for the fandom now, like, they're not doing it for the numbers. Like, people are doing it because they're passionate about the fandom and the kind of works contained within. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to release an album, it's going to do bad, and I'm going to be like, oh, the fandom's dead, I'm out of here. Like, that's not what I'm thinking about. Like, it's more that, like, this new album is actually a bit of a shift for me stylistically. And it's whether I continue down that path of that style. If people are like, this is shit, go back to the ska, then I'll be like, okay, well, maybe I'll make the ska again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's perfectly logical explanation. Yeah. Cool. Well, so you've sent an early copy of one of the tracks. So this album is tentatively coming out in February. Is that still
on the Tuesday, 2nd of the 2nd, 22?
So we actually have a locked in date.
No, no, that's no. I put that date in because it was a lot of twos and it pleased me aesthetically. But I think I say this on the Bandcamp somewhere. It's like that's what I'm aiming for. it might happen sooner, it might happen later. At the moment, I think it's going to be later because I've spoken to one of the collaborators recently, and they've told me they're actually quite sick and they're not able to do vocals right now. And I'm kind of, in that stage where it's like, okay, well, how long are you going to be? Because if it's like weeks, then maybe I'll wait. If it's months, maybe I'll put out like that as a single later on rather than including it in the album. So I don't know, but like early Feb is where I was aiming for.
Yeah, sweet. And it is a significant body of work. The track list with some redactions is up on Bandcamp and available for pre-order at the moment. So is this a concept album about Twilight?
No.
No. Okay.
No, the first song, well, not the first song, the current pre-order song is about Twilight.
Okay.
But the album for me is more about like vibes than any particular character. So one of the things that happened in my like what I consider a hiatus in that 3 years is like the ska band that I used to play with has been not a thing for a while now, and I still like ska, but it's not like I don't listen to it all that often. Like, and I've kind of like my taste has shifted a little bit, and I've been getting into a lot more like kind of math rock and emo, and I've been particularly like, I didn't realize this for quite a while, but I've been liking this fancy new thing the kids are doing called Midwest emo. And it was something that I was liking for quite a while, and it wasn't until someone actually put a label to it I was able to say like, oh, that's what I like. Because up until then I was like, there's this kind of like thing that some bands in the modern pop punk section are doing that's kind of like a bit math rock inspired and a little bit like very like DIY aesthetic, and it's really cool. But like I didn't actually have a label, and someone was like, hey, I think you're talking about Midwest emo, and I was like, yes I am. And then I had like this kind of, as soon as I had the label, I was able to find a lot more bands I liked in that style. And for me, this album is I'm trying to, I'm not making a Midwest emo album. I'm trying to make an album flavored by Midwest emo.
Okay.
So it's not, it's not going to be fully there, but it's kind of like somewhere between my style and these other bands I've been listening to over the past couple of years.
And that is a fascinating pitch for an album. So if you're listening, go to francisvace.bandcamp.com/album/fading, or just search Bandcamp, and you can pre-order it right now. And we have the first play of one of the tracks on the album, which is a remix of Background Part 2 by Koa. Shall we give this one a spin?
Yes, please.
I'm not supposed to feel this way now. Supposed to stay straight and narrow. Supposed to be strong and brave, but the world's so big and scary, and I think it's against me. Think it's trying to test me. Find it so
And does Koa's voice perfectly fit that style of music or what? Wow.
Yeah. I remember like, I mean, to be honest, like that song is. I mentioned earlier that like sometimes I'll get like an idea from something and like that's kind of what I'll be like, okay, now I'm making this thing, and it kind of just grows from there. That song was that for this album. I was in a call. Ko was doing like a sync listen, like a kind of before it was released, kind of sync listen in her Discord. Um, and that song came on. I was like, I think this vocal would be. I think I could do something interesting with this vocal. And I sent her a thing being like, hey, can you send me this vocal? Um, and she was like, yeah, I'll send you this vocal. But you know, it's I'm kind of busy right now. I'll you know, I'll when I get a chance, I'll send it to you. And I was like, okay, cool. But I had this like, I already had that like motivation, and I was like, no, I can't wait for this vocal. So I started like doing other stuff, and I did a similar kind of cover. I did the cover of My World of Make Believe by Jade Kelly. Kind of while I was waiting, but then even that I finished before like Cole was done with the stuff she was doing at the time, and I just started working on other stuff, and it just kind of kept growing and growing, and at some point I was like, okay, this is going to be an EP, I guess. Like I'm making an EP of this, and then like I had all these kind of collaborators, and the same kind of thing happened. Like, you know, I'd sent the instrumentals out to people, and I was like, hey, can you write some stuff to put onto this? Because at the time I was thinking it was going to be entirely a thing where it was like me doing the instrumental and other people doing the vocals, and then you know to write vocals. So I kind of had this period where I had like no work left to do, or no work that I could do to move the project forward, and all I could do was wait. And I was like, okay, well, if I have this time anyway, like, why don't I just like write a bunch of songs and I'll do the vocals for those ones, and I can be working on that while I'm waiting on others to come back. So it just kind of kept growing and growing and growing. But like that original vocal was, you know, I was listening to like her version of it, and I was like, okay, I want to do a thing with this.
Yeah, fuck. And yeah, wow. Between that and Eternal, I am very excited for this album. Yeah, hope cross fingers for this February too, but maybe not.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Like,
yeah.
I've got yeah. There's a few things that kind of will need to happen for that release date to be hit, and I'm less sure of them happening than I was when I initially put the pre-order out. But hopefully sometime around then.
Well, you know the best thing about pre-orders, they come out eventually.
Well.
No jinx. Touch wood. I got my wooden desk here. I'm touching it. Touch wood. Cool. So looking back on your time in the fandom, do you have a proudest accomplishment?
Oh, geez. I mean, to be honest, I kind of touched on this earlier. For me, and this is kind of like a not like selfish, but it's a bit of an ego thing, perhaps. But like,
no, fucking ego things are good. We love ego things on this show.
Yeah, like I kind of brought it up earlier, but when I was at which one was it? Was in America. So it would have been Cider Fest 18 or 19? No, 19 wouldn't have been it, because that was when the Rona was happening. It was like the last Cider Fest before the Rona hit.
Oh, that'd be 19. Rona was 20.
Was that 19?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it was 19. I'm just doubting myself now.
Anyway,
I really hope it was that.
It was a Cider Fest in America.
If it was another con, I'm sorry that I'm attributing to the wrong con. Please have me back when the Rona is gone. But yeah, I was playing, and I did my favorite thing about horses, and when I left those gaps for the audience to fill, that they did fill them was like it felt so special to me that like I had done something and people were engaged with it enough that they were actively participating and they knew like this thing I had done. and there was something there's something about that feeling of like being in that moment where people are like actively engaging and kind of feeding you back that same energy that you're putting out. It's really hard to beat. Like that is an awesome experience.
That is such a cool memory. Oh, that rules. I love that. I love that. And also, another sort of related question: where do you think you'd be as a person and as a musician without your time in the horse fandom?
Holy moly, that is. I think about something tangential to that a lot, and it's not so much that I think about what I would have done otherwise, but I just think about how much of my life, how big a part of my life, like the whole fandom and the show has been. And I think about it, it's I'm just a bit over 30 at the moment, and horse has been part of my life for like a third of that, and I almost can't remember what it was like beforehand. Like I don't remember what it was like to not have this community and not have um like all these friends and stuff. Um and so I I don't know. Like I find it really hard to imagine what it would be like without it because I can't even remember what it was like before it. It's I have no idea. I might be like my initial plan at uni was to go and just like do a science degree, become a science person, get like a responsible adult job, and that didn't quite happen. But like I don't know, I've ended up in like a much more creative field, and it's entirely possible if that wouldn't have happened. I might have been that I would have just kept pushing towards a more sensible businessy kind of job, and I would have been like doing some sort of 9 to 5. I mean, I'm currently doing a 9 to 5, but like I think you know what I mean, like some sort of like
Yeah, absolutely.
very like standard kind of office job.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I would have. Uh, I don't know if I'd still be doing music. I I want to believe that I would be. But at the same time, like the horse has been like such a huge inspiration and such a big driving factor behind it that if even if I was still doing music, I probably wouldn't be doing it as much or at the same level as I currently am. Like I probably would have been doing it more as like a much more of a background hobby, I think, than what I currently am.
Yeah. Sweet. And yeah, that comment of can't even remember a time before horse, that really resonates with me because looking back, I completely agree with that sentiment. And I think for so many people that would be listening to this and so many people in the wider fandom, that I think that statement would hold very true, especially if you've been here for, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years or whatever. So yeah, just wholeheartedly agree. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. I got a couple of questions left. So firstly, one of the final questions that I want to ask, and that I ask every guest on the show, is who would you like to hear interviewed on this podcast? Because you think they'd have a good story to tell, and because you were suggested by Ichigochi. So yeah, who do you want to hear interviewed?
I mean, I'm sure someone's asked us already, but like, you have to get. Have you had Alex on EBT?
No, I'm trying to organize an Alex episode and a Ponies Dawn episode, but we're gonna get there at some point.
Yeah, I think that he would be a good one to talk to. I think that Quicksilver would be a good one to talk to. I'm not sure how much he's doing these days, but I think that he does a lot of what I was trying to do, but better.
Yeah, right.
He like in terms of like, I think we were talking about like influences before, and I kind of talked about my early influences. But he's someone that was is influence the right word? I'm not sure. Like he was definitely a massive motivator for me. In that kind of mid fandom period where like I was trying to do like cool ska punk stuff, and he was doing really cool ska punk stuff, and it was like, oh, holy shit, this guy is good. I need to like step up my game.
Yeah, right. I have never heard of Quicksilver before, so
Haven't you?
no.
Quicksilver is the other half of Lunatics.
Oh. Oh, okay. I didn't even know there was two halves of Lunatics. There we go. Cool.
Yeah, so Lunatics is me and Quicksilver, who his handle is often IDK Quicksilver, and he does most of the music in Lunatics, like most of the instrumentals is done by him, and I'm doing the vocals for the most part.
Yeah,
And
right.
we did have like a period where we had like the band expanded, and Jeff was in it, and Ichigochi was in it for a little bit, as kind of like extra vocalist members. But kind of before that and then after that, it was me and Quicksilver. And every now, like I think we've done once. I'm trying to think now. I think we have one song where it's just me and him, but the roles are reversed. And for that one, we released it as Tunalix instead. There are other songs when there was a few more vocalists where I did the vocals, and I think I did the instrumental. I think that would have been The Rock, which was mostly my instrumental and Jeff on vocals. But for the most part, Quicksilver was doing the instrumental for that, and he is a incredibly talented and very technical player. I think he would have some stories that would be worth hearing.
All right. Well, there we go. I learned something new today. I hope you, the listener, learned something new as well. So thank you so much for your time, Francis. If you want people to keep in touch with sort of all of your projects and your music as well as your games and everything, where should people find you on all of the good old socials?
I mean, for most things, I'm at Francis Vace. I just made a new Twitter for the game I'm currently working on, so you can follow at Trash Planet Game. It's got like 2 posts I think right now because it's still I made it yesterday. But yeah, like for the most part, if there's a social out there, if I'm on it, I'll be at Francis Vace.
Sweet. And you can find this podcast on my socials. So I'm at RockFoxDJ on basically everything. If you're listening to the audio, there is a video version. It doesn't really change much, but it's on YouTube if you prefer to watch on YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube and you want an audio version, we're on Spotify and on the podcast aggregators. And I think I'll leave everyone with my all-time favorite track on Ponies at Dawn, and easily one of my top 5 tracks in the fandom all up. This is Celestial Berserkers featuring Iber Concept by Jikrao and Francis Vace. Francis, thank you so much for your time this episode.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast just chatting with you.
Fuck yeah. Oh, and we have to see each other again sometime soon.
Yes.
Fuck
yes.
Corona. Fuck Corona. Fuck it all.
I cannot wait till the cons come back. I am stinging for some cons.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we just booked the entirety of Brony's Australia. Just booked to go to Furry Down Under. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's con season in Australia again, baby. For the furries.
Nice. Well.
Yeah. Well, for the furries. All right, let's let this one play out. Thanks everyone, and good night.
On the floor, we bust through the door. Say no more as we then explore where your loyalties lie. Look to the sky where royalty flies. Can't boil our eyes, better fear us and our trump card. Come near us and we'll go hard. And so far, there's no star brighter than one. Praise the sun, we bask in the light. Smash and we're right. Fascist the night then gone in a flash, then on to the next perplexed foe. Following close the text scrolls, it may be extreme when we wreck the scene. Better not go on with testing me, it's best you see things our way, lest you be against the day.
We will slaughter every form of the empire, and we will bring totality to the sun goddess. We will fight with all our hearts of Celestia, and we will conquer all of Earthria. The light is pure that governs us all, worship her highness. You will bow and give me perdition, he'll be for us. And the sun we all pray, and the sun we all pray, and the sun we all pray. Glory and Celestia.
Massive class of fascists taking action, making traction, anticipating planned invasions. Ran from the nation, where do they go? Acting evasive, we standing strong in a battle formation. Pedal to the metal, better settle vendettas. Never take your eyes off the enemy, divide the lines. Lives on the line, look past the lies, and it's asinine to call for the ones you left behind. That state of mind will get you killed. Days go by in soldiers' time, they mold your mind and you soldier time. A bolder mind, celestial berserker, never to feel so nervous.
We will slaughter every